Hey, it's your old pal Lucid Stu again, and this is Stu's News, a review of American high-speed rail happenings over the last month. In this January 2025 episode, we'll take a look at what went down in December of 2024. Happy New Year! We'll start with California high-speed rail and the biggest news of the month, the fight for federal funds. California lawmakers are pushing outgoing Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg to give the project another $500 million from the Federal-State Partnership for Intercity Passenger Rail Grant Program in the waning days of the Joseph R. Biden Jr. administration. FSP national grant announcements are not expected until April of 2025, and as of the time of this video's publishing, the Biden administration had just 19 days left to pull the trigger. Here at Stu's News, we love last-minute drama. At the same time, House Republicans are once again salivating at the idea of barring California high-speed rail from federal funds, with Northern California Representative Kevin Kiley leading the charge. In response, several California publications got melodramatic about the project's paltry prospects. As we elucidated last month, the project does currently have enough funds to eke through a second Trump term. So while more short-term federal funds would be helpful to the California High-Speed Rail Authority, they're not totally necessary quite yet. Speaking of that, the California High-Speed Rail Office of Inspector General put out a report regarding necessary timing of funding. We often focus on amount of funds, but when they come in is also important to avoid delays. The Inspector General estimates the Merced to Bakersfield portion of the project is currently $6.5 billion underfunded. The OIG also notes this amount is coincidentally equal to the estimated cost of civil construction for extensions to Merced and Bakersfield and a second track along the 119-mile initial construction segment. According to this chart, critical dates approaching soon run as early as 2026. While the California High-Speed Rail Authority does have some of those funds identified, about $3 billion of necessary funds will be received after critical dates start popping up. In summary, January of 2025 is not a critical time to receive funds, but January of 2026 is. And it's going to take a lot more than the $500 million California reps in the federal government are talking about. This means that right now 2033 is seriously in danger in terms of operating trains between Merced and Bakersfield unless California state politicians step up to the tune of $6 billion additional dollars in the next couple of years. The Bakersfield Californian almost got it right. In more ancillary bureaucrat news, Louis S. Thompson resigned from the chairmanship of the California High-Speed Rail Peer Review Group. Highly qualified with decades of experience in the industry, including direction of the Northeast Corridor Improvement Project for the Federal Railroad Administration in the 80s, his perspective turned out to be all too accurate in terms of the reality of the project. In his resignation letter, Mr. Thompson imbues some parting advice. Number 1, reassess the justification for the project. Number 2, commission a study to identify alternative funding sources. Number 3, commission a study of lessons learned. Number 4, figure out what the hell the peer review group is for now. I've quoted Mr. Thompson before, but especially considering his experience, this is an important insight. Quote, Proposition 1A was at best an optimistic aspiration that was nowhere near being adequately planned, designed, or funded. Unless the financing for the system is adequately and stably provided, the project will never get on track. Reality laid bare. With that, we'll take a look at the Central Valley reports from last month. Capital outlay budget summary, nothing special at $152.1 million for October. Keep in mind these reports run 2 months behind. Current year spending 17% behind where it was at this point last year. To hit the $2.6 billion yearly budget, monthly expenditures should be closer to $210 million. Risk contingency drawdown barely anything in October, which is a huge positive in terms of staying on budget. Design build expenditures at $90 million. It's starting to look like a slight uptrend on that chart, finally. Daily construction site labor just below 1,600, which is quite high for the project. That appears to be paying dividends on construction progress as the authority attempts to wrap up construction packages 2-3 in the next few months. Since the August data, this is an increase of 2 structures and 2 miles of guideway completed, and 1 of each newly underway, all of that in CPs 2-3. Overall, that puts them slightly ahead of the current schedule. CP1 earned value chart performance index hanging in there at 5% below the target. Trajectory continues to look okay there in terms of completing on time at the end of 2026. That's all for California high-speed rail. Let's check out nearby Brightline West. Construction advisories for pre-construction activities have been dormant since December 16th, but according to Brightline West, they just restarted. I caught them doing surveying in Apple Valley on December 2nd when none was scheduled, so who knows. If you've seen anything going on along Interstate 15 between Rancho Cucamonga and Las Vegas, let me know in the comments. The Nevada Department of Transportation had a brief update on the project during their December 9th meeting. Everything is going to plan, although a little slower than planned. A couple of boxes still need to be checked, finalizing the occupancy permit for the Interstate 15 median, and Brightline West securing financing for the entire project so they can unlock the $3 billion federal grant that NDOT secured through the FSP National Program. Still on Brightline, let's see what's happening in Florida. Martin County officials have filed for a $45 million grant to pay for the uncommitted portion of a new station in Stuart, Florida. The article says the grants are expected to be announced in April, which means they're going for FSP national money. I'd rank that as unlikely in a Biden administration, but does a Trump administration give Florida more deference? Martin County officials are certainly hoping so. Continuing the subject of the impact of 5 new Siemens Venture carriages recently received by Brightline, ridership was up 13% month over month, which seems to indicate a major impact. That brings Brightline 2024 ridership up to 2.5 million trips with a month to go in the calendar year, these reports running 1 month behind. Brightline hopes to receive 25 additional carriages by mid-2025, which would expand capacity by another 55%. Extrapolating 2024 ridership numbers, this could mean Brightline facilitating around 4 million trips in 2025, or 1/3 as many as Amtrak on the Northeast Corridor. Hey, speaking of the Northeast Corridor, time to look in on it and Acela service. More downed wire problems for Amtrak, this time in Pennsylvania. Maybe if they get yelled at hard enough for this one, they'll do a Pennsylvania-wide checkup like they just did in New Jersey. Around the same time, there were also problems with signal power at New York Penn Station, which affected the entire NEC. Both problems were only a few days before Christmas, so they clearly have no luck. Issues were cleared up quickly, as always. In construction news, crews cleared the last of the remnant piers next to the Susquehanna River Bridge in Maryland. Those piers were from a bridge built in 1866 that the current bridge, which is now being replaced. Up the coast in New Jersey, contracts were awarded to Walsh and Herzog and Skanska for pre-construction work on the Sawtooth Bridges project. This is a project which will replace and rebuild a complicated interaction between the NEC and 2 other rail lines between Newark, New Jersey and Manhattan. Now let's take a look at the new fiscal year numbers for Amtrak on the NEC. This report runs 2 months behind and is for October. After a record-breaking fiscal year 2024, 2025 started off with a bang. Amtrak improving on those record numbers. Combined revenue up 11% year over year, with Northeast Regional, the star of the show, up 16% compared to October of last year. On top of that, huge increases in operating earnings, up 84% over last year, and Northeast Regional leading the charge once again, up 120%. A very strong start to the new fiscal year. We'll see if they can keep it up rolling into the new administration. That's all for Acela and the NEC, but while we're on the subject of the federal government, another big spending bill for rail has been introduced, titled the All Aboard Act. This seeks to reinvigorate programs from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act from 2021 that provided Amtrak and intercity passenger rail infrastructure with $66 billion in funding. However, the All Aboard Act is the super-duper version, bringing that up to $200 billion. A little less for Amtrak, more for intercity passenger rail infrastructure, and with a stated goal of all new locomotives being zero emission by 2047. This could mean significant sums for electrification. We'll see how it goes. Before parting the federal government, I'd like to say goodbye to my favorite Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, who will be leaving office in a few weeks. I will be retiring Pete's theme, which is the opening of Friends of P by the Rentals, for those of you who didn't know. Who knows, maybe one day Mayor Pete will be President Pete, and we'll be able to put that back into commission. So long, Pete! Let's move on from that touching tribute and reinvigorate ourselves in the mists of Cascadia high-speed rail. The Washington State Department of Transportation received a $50 million grant as part of the Corridor ID program. This is a second-step grant, which means it's meant to fund activities similar to a Tier 1 environmental impact statement, where they will look at alternatives and do some preliminary environmental work. Where Corridor ID differs is that this step is meant to build an inventory of work that can be executed through grants in Corridor ID Phase 3 or through other Federal Railroad Administration grant programs. This is the same kind of grant Amtrak received for Texas Central Railway a few months ago. Cascadia High-Speed Rail has been stuck in study hell for many years now. Let's see if the Corridor ID program helps it move past that point. That's all for Cascadia. Now it's time for Stu's Boo-Boos, where we go over everything I missed or got wrong last month. We talked about Amtrak celebrating completion of Keystone Corridor work in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Only problem is the ceremony took place at Elizabethtown. Now that is Amtrak's fault for misreporting the location, but I will take responsibility for not checking a second source. Big thanks to commenter Extra LT1 for the local angle on that. That's a gold star. This shows the power of the network of Lucid Stew viewers in finding information. But it isn't always effective. I have some bad news too. In the California High-Speed Rail section this month, I talked about Lewis S. Thompson resigning from the peer review group. I also talked about a report by the Inspector General. Those occurred in September and October respectively. Since I found those at the same time and they're both California High-Speed Rail related, we'll take off one gold star and call it a day. That makes this month a wash. Gold stars for you, still 18. Silver stars for me, for a boo-boo free month, a measly 5. Hopefully this month went better. As always, if you find a boo-boo in this presentation or something I missed, let me know in the comments. If it's a good one, you win a prize. A special thanks goes out to the Stew Crew Discord channel. If you'd like to join our motley crew, check out the invite in the description. A reminder that Superthanks are available. Funding for the new computer was successful, and I am now working on the purchase of that. Superthanks are back to funding full Vegas trips for monthly updates on Brightline West construction when they start. Check out the button below the video. Plenty more videos to come this year. I somehow managed to publish 43 videos in 2024. Let's see if I can top that in 2025. But that's all for now. Until next time, I'll see you on that big beautiful freeway.